Chapter 5. Misti stared at Micah for a moment, noting the ring he had held out in his hand. Even though she'd been joking with Caroline that it might be a possibility, she was astonished that it was actually happening so soon. "I've only known you 2 days." Her mind was racing for an answer. She wanted to have sex with the man, but was that enough reason to marry him? Of course, when she looked at him, she could imagine him holding their child. Maybe that should tell her something. It doesn't matter when you know that someone is right for you. "Marry me." Micah kept his eyes steady on hers, hoping she'd give him the answer he needed. Where would we live? She couldn't give up her dream of owning a band B, so he would have to move in with her. Your place. My sister has been pestering me to move out so she can have my place. The cabin is hers if I move. Misti bit her lip, not sure what she should say. When are you thinking? Soon was the answer she wanted him to give her, because she desperately wanted to be his wife. How had she not known how much marriage to him meant to her until that very moment? Monday, if we can make it happen. If not, I guess I can wait until Tuesday. She laughed. Caroline had been right. He was in a hurry. Do you only want to marry me because I won't let you do me? She didn't even know why she was questioning him when she knew she wanted to marry him no matter what. He chuckled. You don't beat around the bush, do you? What's the point in that? Misti asked. Straight questions got straight answers from what she'd seen. She wanted a real answer, so she'd asked the question in a way he would provide it. That's part of it. I'm not going to lie. But a bigger part of it is that I want to see your face first thing when I wake up in the morning. I want to learn more about you every day. I feel like we belong together, and I want us to marry for that reason, not because of sex. I want to marry you faster, because of sex, but it's not the only reason I want to marry you. But sex is part of it. Misti had to be clear on that one point. The overwhelming passion she felt for him needed to be returned. Of course, it is. You make me crazy. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and that includes 8 hours a day in bed. Minimum. 20 would be better. Misti bit her lip before nodding. It's probably crazy to agree, but yes, I'll marry you. It worked for Caroline, so I know it will work for me. She knew a marriage of hers would never last a lifetime, because she wasn't the kind of woman a man would stay with forever, but if he would give her a part of his life, then she would accept that part gratefully. He let out a whoop and grabbed her hand, sliding the ring on her finger, and then pulling her toward him. Now we have to seal it with a kiss. We can't really be engaged without that, can we? Besides, it was an excuse to touch her again. She laughed, happily moving into his arms and raising her lips for his kiss. This time she let him initiate the kiss, and she wrapped her arms around him as his lips touched hers, and his tongue stroked into her mouth. She could do this every day for the rest of her life. Or until he ran off. Probably until he ran off. But she would enjoy life until he did, and if she was left alone with a child, then she would love that child the same way her mother had loved her, with everything inside her. Let's go, he said, abruptly breaking off the kiss and getting to his feet. Where are we going? She watched as he stuffed everything back into the picnic basket, and then he took her hand. Home, princess, he commanded, and the dog whimpered just once before trotting off in the direction of the cabin. Micah started walking, pulling her in a direction they hadn't been yet. Finally, Misti dug her heels in. Where are you taking me? Oh, sorry. I need to introduce you to my parents. He couldn't believe he hadn't told her that yet, or that she hadn't figured it out for herself. Of course she needed to meet his parents if he was marrying her on Monday. She stood there for a moment. I'm not ready to meet your parents. I have paint on my legs. What was he thinking? She had to go home and scrub the paint off her legs with a Brillo pad if that's what it took. It's one of your charms, he said, starting to walk again, and not seeming to notice he was half-dragging her along with him. What if they hate me? Meeting parents wasn't exactly her specialty. They won't hate you. My mother is talking about grandbabies all the time. How could she hate you when you might give her some? The idea of getting her pregnant was very appealing to him. Do you even want kids? Misti asked. Maybe we should talk about these things before we get your parents involved. Of course, we shouldn't. It'll be more fun to answer questions on the fly. You'll see. He couldn't figure out why she was so nervous about meeting his parents, but he knew they needed to do it immediately or she'd chicken out. He could just feel it deep inside him. Micah, you have lost your mind. Of course, I have. I lost it over you. Still he walked, and still she followed, whether she wanted to or not. Do your parents even know I'm coming? We can't just spring a surprise like this on them. There had to be some way to convince him that now was not the time to meet his parents. My mom packed the picnic, knowing I would probably propose today. She knows me well enough to know that I don't do anything halfway. If I take a girl out, then I'm serious about her. Full stop. Besides, Dad asked Mom to marry him a week after they met. It's kind of what our family does. A house came into view, and Misti wanted to scream when she realized there were people outside already. Micah, I'm not ready for this. Her voice sounded panicked even to her own ears. Of course, you are. Finally, he stopped walking and turned to her. My parents are nice people. I promise. You're going to enjoy meeting them, and you and Mom can start planning the wedding. Misti sighed. If you want to marry Monday, there will be no time to plan anything. We're marrying Monday, and sure there's time. You ladies will figure it all out. His words made her wonder if he was planning to be involved in the wedding planning at all, but she decided not to ask. Why bother? He started walking again, and this time she followed. She didn't want her future mother-in-law to see her being dragged across the ranch the first time they met. When they got to the house, Misti smiled at the older woman who was kneeling on the ground in the middle of a tomato patch. Your tomatoes are beautiful, Misti said, noting the small green fruits that were starting to form. She dropped to her knees and started pulling weeds, happy to help out. I'm Misti, by the way. I'm Andrea. Are you going to marry my son? The woman had a sweet smile, and Misti was immediately drawn to her. It was like she had known this woman should be a part of her life the entire time. She was almost as drawn to her as she was to Micah, though in a very different way. Misti nodded. I told him I'd marry him on Monday, despite the fact that he dragged me across your ranch for 5 minutes to get to you. Andrea laughed. Sounds like Micah. His mother nodded toward the door. Go get your father and your sisters. They're going to want to meet the newest member of our family as well. Micah went into the house and let the screen door bang shut behind him. Are you going to can the tomatoes? Misti asked. Andrea shook her head. No, I use them for fresh salsa and on salads. I'm a vegetarian. Micah didn't mention that. Only me and my youngest daughter. The rest of them are carnivores. Well, omnivores, because I wouldn't let them eat just meat. Andrea pulled up another clump of weeds and put it into the pile growing between them. You definitely know your way around a garden. When I was a teenager, I thought it would be a great idea to garden, so I borrowed a rototiller from a neighbor, and I planted potatoes, carrots, spinach, and tomatoes. I watered them every day, and I was out there every day with a hoe or on my knees. I have never tasted a vegetable that was quite as good as that first garden full. Her mother had been more like Caroline than she was like Misti. She was happy to eat junk for every meal, but when Misti started bringing in her produce, she'd declared it all wonderful and eaten it with a smile. Andrea smiled. You and I are going to get along just fine. Do you want kids? Misti smiled. Micah and I haven't discussed it yet, but I think I do want kids. Boys though. Little boys who look just like their father. The door slammed again, and Misti looked up. The girl who had been at the reception desk of the hotel was there, and she smiled. I saw you with Micah last night. I'm Rebecca. It's good to meet you. I'm Misti. With a Y or an I? An I. That's how I would have spelled it. I love it. Rebecca looked at her mother. How could you drag her into the dirt with you when you just met her? She looked more than a little shocked at her mother's behavior. There was no dragging involved. She got down here voluntarily and started to weed with me. Andrea got to her feet, brushing the dirt off her hands and legs. Misti followed suit, noting that all three of Micah's sisters were taller than her. It's nice to meet all of you. His father wasn't out there, and she hoped that didn't mean he wouldn't like her. Micah nodded to the tallest of his sisters. This is the baby of the family, Esther, and this is the middle sister, Mary. Hi, Esther said. I can't believe Micah is going to get married. It just doesn't seem like he's old enough, because I'm not old enough. Does that even make sense? Misti nodded with a smile. It makes a lot of sense. I can't imagine having a sibling so far apart in age from me. Of course, I'm an only child, so I can't imagine having a sibling at all. She was a little intimidated by his sisters in a way she hadn't been with his mother. She knew how to be a daughter, but being a sister was something that would be new to her. Well, you'll be one of our sisters now, Mary told Misti. Sounds good to me. Misti was a little overwhelmed by the kindness his family was showing. She hadn't expected it at all, though she wasn't sure why. Andrea smiled. All right. Let's get inside, and we will start talking wedding, though you and Micah are giving us no time at all. It was Micah's idea to get married so fast, Misti said, throwing Micah under the bus. His mother could get mad at him all day, but if she got mad at Misti, life would be harder for them. I figured as much. The boy does anything he can think of that will make my life harder, I think. Andrea led Misti into the house, and all three of Micah's sisters trailed along behind. When they got inside, Misti noticed Micah's father sitting in a chair, watching a baseball game. Who's winning? She asked. Brewers. That's not good. Misti said automatically. Micah's dad turned to face her. You're not a Brewers fan? No, I can't be. I have to be a Twins fan. I'm from the Minneapolis area. He studied her for a moment before nodding. You're a keeper. I hate the Brewers. I'm rooting for the Cardinals. Andrea shook her head. That's Micah's father, Adam. He said since he was the first man in the Bible, we had to give all of the children Bible names. I noticed they all had Bible names. Misti couldn't help but wonder if she and Micah would be expected to follow suit. Don't worry. You can name your children anything you want without any argument from us. Andrea sat down at the table. Now, do you want a church wedding? Misti hadn't even considered it. My friend Caroline got married at the church, and the ceremony was really nice. Would the pastor mind doing it that quickly again? The Cauldrons have kept him busy with quick weddings for a couple of months now. Why don't we keep that going? It keeps him on his toes. Misti grinned. My friend had everyone wear shorts to her wedding, which was fun. I couldn't get the paint off my legs, though, so the pictures will be interesting. She was glad her legs were hidden under the table then, because she really didn't want her lack of cleanliness to be known. Andrea laughed. What were you painting? I'm turning an old house in town into a band bee. I'm doing all the renovations myself. You know how to do renovations? Andrea asked, looking excited. I do. I know how to do all of it. I have another month or two of work, and then I'll be ready to open. Micah said he'd move in there with me, rather than me moving to the ranch. Rebecca raised her arms above her head in victory. The cabin is mine. You can give your brother a couple of weeks to move out, Andrea said, shaking her head. I'm glad he's getting married, though, because I was starting to worry you'd kill him off, just to get him out of the way so you could have his house. The thought never crossed my mind. Well, not more than a half-dozen times at least. Rebecca rubbed her hands together eagerly. I'll even help him pack. Misti laughed. I think he'll be happy that I saved him. Do you want a traditional wedding dress? Andrea asked, trying to steer the conversation back to wedding planning. I don't think so. I'm so not the frilly dress-up for a wedding type. Could we do jeans and cowboy hats? Micah would enjoy that altogether too much, Mary said. Why don't you wear shorts, and make him wear a tux? The grin on Micah's sister's face was downright evil as she made her suggestion. Esther leaned forward, nodding. Yes. Make Micah wear something uncomfortable, but the rest of us can wear shorts or jeans or whatever you want. Andrea glared at her daughters. What did Micah ever do to make you wish discomfort on him? He dropped me on my head, Esther said automatically. No, he didn't, Andrea said, shaking her head. Yes, he did. That's why my head is shaped so funny. There is nothing wrong with the shape of your head, Esther Louise. Esther sighed. It's shaped funny, and that's all there is to it. Andrea looked at Misti. Are you sure you want siblings? Misti just laughed. She was enjoying the entire conversation. She did notice that Micah had turned his back and was watching the game with his father instead of helping with the wedding plans. Maybe we should just wear jeans, she suggested. She didn't want to wear a dress, and she knew Micah would be comfortable in jeans, and so would she. It seemed like the perfect solution to her. I think that's fine, Andrea said. Your blue legs won't show, and Micah will be quite happy. Do you want to make it Western-themed or just jeans? Western is fine. I'll wear my pink cowgirl boots and the matching hat. He can wear what he wears every day. Everyone will be comfortable. A pink cowboy hat was as close as she ever came to really dressing like a girl. And I won't get him back for dropping me on my head. I see where this is going. Esther sighed dramatically. I guess you're all just glad he didn't drop you on your heads. Andrea frowned at her youngest daughter. There was no dropping of anyone on anyone's head. She grabbed a pen and paper from the middle of the table and began to jot notes. I'm going to ask Griselda to make some of her famous cupcakes for the reception if you don't mind. Not at all. She made them for Caroline and Ted's wedding, and they were delicious. Misti smiled. Make sure she puts cream cheese frosting on them, whatever kind she makes. Mary, Rebecca, and Esther all licked their fingers and raised them in the air. I can't believe you said a cauldron's name without licking your fingers. Mary said, obviously in awe of the daring it took not to follow local superstitions. Misti shrugged. I think licking your fingers, because you heard the name of a triplet, is a silly thing to do. I refuse to be part of that nonsense. She knew the practice really annoyed Caroline, who was part of the finger-licking thing now, and she was going to do her part to stop it from continuing. Andrea smiled. I refuse as well. I moved here when I married Adam. I was raised in Black Aces, and it just didn't seem smart or sanitary. I know. Misti said. I keep thinking there's going to be a pandemic, and everyone will have to go into self-isolation to avoid touching other people with licked fingers. This place is the kind where it would spread like wildfire. You are so right. Oh, you and I are going to get along very well. Andrea grinned at her and then looked back down at her paper. So, do you want to do just finger foods for the reception? Or a full sit-down meal? After what seemed like hours of discussion, the menu was planned, and Micah got to his feet. "You two can get together and figure out the rest tomorrow," he said. "We're coming for supper on Sunday, Mom." "Sounds good to me," Andrea said. "Will you two be at church on Sunday?" Micah nodded. "I will be." "Misti?" "Absolutely." She hadn't gone much since she'd arrived in town, because she hadn't felt comfortable going alone, but now that she had a family to sit with, she'd be there. "My legs will probably still be blue, though." "Don't worry about your blue legs," Mary said. "We'll tell everyone that it's a new fashion in Minneapolis, and it will travel here soon." "Great idea," Esther said. "Can I do your makeup for the wedding, Misti?" "I really like doing makeup for people." Misti looked at Andrea, trying to get an indication of whether or not the girl knew what she was doing. At Andrea's nod, she smiled. "Sure. Sounds like fun." "Yay!" Esther jumped up and clapped her hands. "I'm excited to have a new sister who won't steal my clothes." "I never steal anyone's clothes," Misti said. "Well, I stole my mother's nurse's uniform once for Halloween, but that's the only time." "And you can't steal our clothes," Rebecca said. "You're half our size." Misti sighed dramatically. "Being short is good at times, but sometimes, it's just a pain in my backside." She'd never been able to share clothes with Caroline either, and she'd always wanted to. Esther leaned forward. "You're allowed to say but." Mom doesn't get mad at that word. "I'll keep that in mind," Misti said, trying not to laugh. "I use that word sometimes too." "Don't use the word that means the same thing though. That one makes her mad." Misti did laugh at that. "I will do my best not to use the word then." Micah rolled his eyes. "We're out of here. Let us go already." Andrea hugged Misti. "Welcome to the family." "Thank you." Misti thought about how her mother was going to react to the news of her impending nuptials, hoping she'd be as enthusiastically optimistic as Andrea was. She couldn't wait to call her and let her know. Just before they reached the door, a thought occurred to Misti. "We should have someone play the guitar at our wedding. Will fit really well with the cowboy theme." Micah frowned. "I don't know anyone who plays well enough, but I think I remember Jim Cauldron saying one of his hands plays. I'll call him when I get home tonight." As they left the house and walked toward Micah's cabin, Misti smiled up at him. "Thank you for making me meet them today. I love your family." She'd have been nervous for days if he hadn't just forced the situation. It was better this way. "They love you too. A little too much. And I never dropped Esther on her head." "I never said you did. It's Esther who needs convincing." Chapter 6. As soon as Micah dropped her off, Misti called Caroline. "I hope you're up for a wedding on Monday," she said without preamble. She couldn't wait to hear her friend's reaction to her news. Caroline squealed. "I knew it. Have you called your mom yet?" "Not yet. I promised to tell you first, remember?" Misti couldn't believe Caroline would even ask her that. It had been a long time since the last time they'd pinky swore on something, but they still kept their promises to one another. "Oh, that's right. Yeah, now hang up with me and call your mom. Call me back after talking to her, and we'll talk about matron of honor attire." "You think you're matron of honor, huh?" Misti had to tease her friend. Of course, she was matron of honor. "Oh, please. Like you have a better friend than me." Misti laughed. "Jeans and a cowboy hat. I'll call again, though." She ended the call and decided to call Caroline's mother first. It would be a practice call for when she spoke with her own mother, who tended to be very negative about marriage in general. She was almost afraid to tell her. She started to put the number into her phone, and then she remembered. Caroline's mother had died when they were 16. There was a quick tear shed that she couldn't share the moment with a woman who had meant so much to her, and then she tapped her own mother's number from her contact list. Her mother answered, sounding out of breath. "Hey, Mom." "Misti. What are you up to? How's the house coming?" Though her mother didn't really understand why she did what she did, she was always supportive of her. Misti could picture her mother sitting in her favorite chair, one leg tucked up under her. "The house is coming along great. Did I interrupt something? You sound out of breath." "I was just doing some housework, and I didn't have my phone on me, so I ran." "You're not supposed to run in the house, Mom." "Smart Alec." Her mother laughed. "So, what's happening?" They usually talked every Sunday afternoon, so the call was unexpected. "I'm getting married Monday," Misti said, knowing it would be better to just get the words out. "Are you serious?" Her mother sounded more than a little surprised. "I am. I know you probably can't make it, but I thought I'd let you know." Misti wasn't even sure she wanted her mother there. Her feelings about marriage were bound to make the day harder for her. There was silence for a moment. "I have off until Thursday. I'm going to pack and start driving. I can get a mother of the bride dress out there. The wedding will be informal. We're just doing Western wear." Misti was a little surprised her mother was willing to make the drive. "I don't mind if you come, but I'm surprised you can take the time." Surprised and nervous both. She never knew what to expect from her mother. "I missed a lot of your important moments when you were growing up," her mother responded. "I don't want to miss your wedding." "Will Caroline be there?" "Yes, of course. She's the matron of honor." "Well, I'll give you away." Misti was sure that would look strange, but she didn't mind. Her mother could give her away if she wanted to. "I'm glad you're coming, Mom," Misti said softly. It would be a long drive, and she was very happy her mother was making the effort, no matter what happened when she arrived. The effort was a major thing. "I'll have to leave after the wedding, probably, but at least I can be there for the big day. I know our family hasn't been the most traditional one, but I do love you more than I can express." Misti felt a tear trickle down her face. "I love you too, Mom." "Okay, here's the plan. I'm going to pack my things, nap for a couple of hours if I can, and then I'll head your way. It's only about a 16-hour drive if I make no stops, so I can do that straight through. Just be careful." To her knowledge, her mother had never made that type of road trip. She didn't want to worry about her mother falling asleep at the wheel. "I will. And I'm not afraid to call you and force you to talk to me if I get too sleepy. I'm having Sunday dinner with Micah's family tomorrow, so call when you get close. I want to be home when you arrive." After ending the call, Misti sat and stared at her phone for a moment. "My mother is going to be here for my wedding." She couldn't think of a single other person in the world who would be shocked about their mother showing up for her wedding, but she truly was. She immediately texted Micah. "My mom is making the drive out here for the wedding. I'm surprised, but I'm really glad she's willing to make that kind of effort." Within seconds, there was a response. "That's great. I can't wait to meet her." Misti thought about the difference between Micah's mom and her mom, and she knew it would be very strange. They were not the same type of people at all. His mother was all about cooking from scratch and gardening, and her mother was all about opening a can of chili and nuking it. She only hoped the two of them could get along. She went into her bedroom and found her cowboy boots and matching pink cowboy hat. She had a white silk blouse that would go nicely, and she'd wear her newest pair of jeans, the only ones she possessed without paint on them. She called Caroline again, knowing her friend was waiting to hear from her. "You're never going to believe this." "What?" Caroline asked, sounding a little distracted. She was either spending time with her husband or working on her study of the effects of geothermal activity on people's personalities. She'd chosen the field of study for her doctorate based on where Misti had ended up, but judging by the strange people in the town, there was going to be some real findings. My mother is coming for the wedding. Wait, Caroline sounded surprised, which made sense, because she'd known Misti's mother for as long as she'd known Misti. The woman who was too busy to go to our ballet recital when we were 6 is going to drive to the back of beyond for her daughter's wedding? Crazy, huh? Misti shook her head. I think she might be trying to make up for the lack of affection she gave me as a little girl. Maybe. That's not fair though. Mom was always affectionate. She was just inordinately busy working, because my father ran off when I was 2. I can't blame my mother for that. I actually have a lot more respect for her because she was able to hold things together as well as she was. Misti was ashamed to have even said anything against her mother. I understand what you mean, though, Caroline said softly. Maybe her coming to the wedding will be healing for both of you. That would be good. We could sit in the springs together and sing Kumbaya. Caroline laughed. As long as I'm invited to the Love Fest, I'm all for it. There was a brief pause. Have you and Micah worked out the thing about the springs yet? Misti felt a sinking in the pit of her stomach. No, we haven't. It hasn't even been mentioned again. And she didn't want to mention it. Why would she risk her relationship for the springs? Well, don't you think you at least need to talk about it? Clear things up as best you can? No, I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe after we're married, we can talk about it. It just doesn't feel like the timing is right. Besides, Misti hated confrontations. She would rather sulk in misery than have to confront anyone about anything. Caroline sighed. I'm not sure that's wise. I'm not sure it's wise either, but it's how I'm handling things. Misti rubbed the back of her neck. I'm going to soak in the springs. Any desire to join me? She could use some time with her friend. Sure. Ted is at the ranch with his brothers tonight. I could use a pamper me kind of girls' night. How fast can you get here? Misti asked. I'm changing now. Be there in 5. Misti ended the call and went into her bedroom, changing into her swimsuit. A soak in the springs was just what she needed to feel better. She knew it was the answer to everything that worried her and ailed her. And maybe even to other things she hadn't thought of yet. Asterisk. Misti met Micah at the back of the church the following morning, and he took her hand, leading her through the congregation to his mother. He kept her hand firmly in his, and when they joined his mother, his arm went around her waist. The smile on his mother's face surprised her. Is something funny? Andrea looked as if she was trying not to laugh, and not merely smiling to be polite. I'm just amused at how territorial Micah is being. He's making sure every man in this church knows that you are his and not available. Andrea shook her head at her son, still grinning. Misti looked up at Micah. Is that what you're doing? How had she not caught on to that? My mom knows me well. I see some of the guys here looking at you like you're fresh meat, and no one is going to even get a chance to think he might possibly get a date with you. I'm introducing you to everyone in this entire church as my fiancé. Hopefully no one else would notice how territorial he was being, but he didn't regret it. Not one little bit. I guess you could do that, or you could realize that it doesn't matter if they ask me out, because I'm engaged to you. Misti rolled her eyes at Andrea, who laughed softly. I only have 2 days to introduce you as my fiancé. After tomorrow, you'll be my wife, and then I'll have missed out on the fun of introducing you as my affianced. Misti looked at Micah again, shaking her head. Are guys even supposed to know the word affianced? One of the first things she'd noticed about Micah was that he had a tendency to slip into antiquated speech. This guy knows lots of words, Micah said, shrugging. My vocabulary isn't erased just because you don't think I should be a walking dictionary. Andrea smiled. Micah's always been a big reader. I think if he hadn't always known he was going to be running the hotel one day, he'd have become an English professor. Misti chalked up the information she'd been given in the Learning Something New Every Day column. She hoped she would be adding to that column every day of their lives together. What else don't I know about Micah? His mother would have more dirt on him than most people did. She couldn't wait to hear. Andrea smiled. I'll show you his naked baby pictures when you come over for lunch today. She winked at Misti, who laughed. I'd like that a lot. Misti glanced at Micah and noted he was blushing. She decided to give him a break by changing the subject. My mom is going to be here sometime today. She left the Minneapolis area around 8 last night, and she planned to drive straight through. That's a tough drive. If she needs somewhere to stay, let her know we have a spare room, Andrea said. I appreciate that. I'll let her know. I have a feeling she'll stay with me, though. We haven't had time together with both of us off work in ages. Besides, with the bed and breakfast, I have plenty of room for her. Then you two will have a lovely time. Andrea spotted someone over Misti's shoulder. Griselda, I'm glad you're here. What are you planning for the reception? Misti looked at Andrea. I thought you were planning my reception. Not that she minded who did the planning as long as she didn't have to. She enjoyed cooking, but just planning a menu was not a fun thing to do. When I called Griselda and asked her to make her cupcakes, she said she wanted to do all of the food as her wedding gift to the two of you. Oh. Misti was surprised, but also pleased. She knew Caroline thought a lot of the housekeeper who lived with the patriarch of the Cauldron family. That's so sweet of you. Not as sweet as my cupcakes, Griselda said with a laugh. I'm going to do some finger sandwiches, some tortilla rolls, some sausage rolls. Lots of stuff like that. And some chips to go with my famous queso. She rubbed her hands together. You know there won't be a lot of people at the wedding, right? It sounded to Misti as if the older woman was making enough food to feed a small army. Griselda waved a hand dismissively. You'll have all of the Cauldrons and their new wives, all of Micah's family, and me, of course. Who else could possibly need to be there? Obviously, most of the important people in her life had been mentioned already. My mother is coming from Minnesota. Well, she should probably be there too. What about your father? I haven't seen him since I was a little girl. I have a feeling he's not going to show up for my wedding. Misti tried to act nonchalant about it, but as she was thinking about her wedding, she wished he was there to walk her down the aisle. Not that he'd earned the privilege with her mother playing double duty, but there was something inside her that still wished. Andrea frowned. That's really sad. At least you'll have a father now. Adam will be thrilled to be your new father. Misti smiled. I'm sure he'll be a great one. He already is, Micah said, squeezing her shoulders. Griselda looked back and forth between Misti and Andrea. Do you both like the meal plans I've made? Misti nodded. They sound good to me. Are we going to serve anything to drink? I'll make a punch. You don't worry about it. Just get ready for the wedding. Griselda wandered off, going to sit at the piano. Misti shrugged. Has she always been just a bit odd? She'd started to say off, but she was worried the others would take offense. Oh, definitely, Andrea said. Isn't she perfect? Misti grinned as they took their seats, Micah still maintaining his hold on her. She could get used to having a man always touching her. Especially if that man was Micah. Chapter 7. Sunday dinner with the Cunningham was rambunctious in a way Misti had never experienced. She watched the siblings bicker back and forth over the most ridiculous things, and she laughed throughout the entire meal. Just as they were finishing up, she received a text. Be there in half an hour. Misti frowned. My mother is just about here, so I need to leave. I plan to help with the dishes. She felt badly running out without doing her share. Andrea shook her head. You can help next time. Today is Esther's turn for dishes anyway. Esther groaned. First I get dropped on my head. Then I have to do all the dishes alone. So annoying. She pushed her plate away. I hate doing dishes. Micah glared at his youngest sister. Why are you going on about me dumping you on your head? I haven't done that in ages. He grinned wickedly at her, just to make her fuss more. What else was a big brother to do? See? Mom, he really did drop me on my head, just like I told you. Now you're going to have to understand when I don't do as well as you think I should in math. It's because I have brain damage. And it's all Micah's fault. Andrea frowned at Micah. Do you have to encourage her madness? Micah just grinned, getting to his feet. I'll drive you back to your car. He reached for her hand, happy to escape the madness and be alone with Misti. Thank you for the meal, Andrea. I really will help with the dishes next time, Esther. Misti wasn't about to get in the middle of sibling squabbles, even if they were ridiculously amusing. Bye. We'll see you tomorrow. Andrea called to her, and it was echoed by Mary and Rebecca. Poor Esther was still mumbling under her breath about being dropped on her head, and Misti knew it was going to take her a long time to stop talking about it. Micah shouldn't have fed into the madness, but it sure had been funny when he did. As soon as they were in the car, Misti sighed with relief. I enjoy your family a great deal, but sometimes I'm not sure how I'm supposed to act around them. It truly felt strange being part of a big family, and though she knew she wouldn't officially be a family member until the next day, it felt like she was already. I can see that, Micah said. At least you know they like you, because they act like you're part of the family already. That's true. Misti took a deep breath, held it, and let it out. Are you going to go to the house and meet my mom? She had a feeling her mother would want to meet him before the wedding. What mother wouldn't want to meet the man about to marry her only daughter? Sure. You know what, we should just leave your car at the church for now. Your mom is going to be there to drive you tomorrow afternoon for the wedding. Micah couldn't believe they were marrying the next day. It felt like they'd known each other forever and only for a few minutes all at once. That works. It's not like I can't walk over and get it when I want to anyway. Misti shrugged. You should have supper with Mom and me tonight, and then she and I can bond in the hot springs later. At her mention of the hot springs, Micah frowned. She really needed to stop talking about them so openly. Your mom is going to be really tired when she gets here. I know she will. She'll probably crash as soon as she arrives, and we can spend the day together. Then I'll fix supper, and you can skedaddle after we eat. I'd really like you to have a little time to spend with Mom before she has to head back to Minnesota. When will she leave? Micah asked. He planned to take most of the week off, because he could. His dad had already agreed that he would take his place so they could honeymoon, either at home or somewhere else. He didn't care as long as he had time alone with Misti, and that was sure to happen. Right after the wedding. She only has a few days off, and she came at the last minute, so she couldn't request more. Misti was used to her mother always working and being rushed, but she was sure it would be odd for Micah. When I was a kid, Mom worked at the hotel 2 days a week. She sat at the reservation desk and helped check people in. I always hated the days when she was working, because then she wouldn't have fresh cookies waiting for me. Then when she got pregnant with Rebecca, she had some health problems, so the doctor told her she needed to stop working. And that was better? In a lot of ways, it was. I found out later that Mom was working because she was having so many problems keeping a baby that it was the only way to keep her mind off her troubles. She'd had 6 miscarriages between me and Rebecca, and she was pretty heartbroken. He felt bad that he hadn't realized what was going on, even though he'd been a child. That's so sad. Misti couldn't imagine his vibrant, sweet mother having all of the difficulties that went with miscarrying. It really was. And all I could think about was that she wasn't at home to serve me cookies and milk when I got home. Micah pulled into her driveway. I still feel a little bad about that every day. Are you telling me this so I'll give my mom a break about not being there when I got home from school? It wasn't something that still bothered her. Oh, she looked at people who had what she would consider an idyllic childhood and thought about how much she wished her life had been that way, but she didn't think her mother had done anything wrong. Not at all. I don't think you judge her for that. I just want to say that the way we remember things from when we were children are very one-sided. No, I didn't have fresh cookies every day, but my mother was fighting a battle with depression with all of the miscarriages. I have a feeling your mother would have given anything to be able to be the mom waiting at home for you when you got out of school with fresh-baked cookies on the counter. Misti laughed. She may have liked being home, but the cookies would have been Oreos, which wouldn't be a bad thing at all. Mom is neither a cook nor a baker. The domestic gene skipped over her completely. He chuckled. All moms don't need to be domestic. Let's face it, my mom is domestic enough for 6 moms. Your mom didn't have any other pregnancy issues after Rebecca? Misti wanted to be able to reach out to her mother-in-law if she ever noticed she was sad. It would be good for both of them. She lost 2 more between Rebecca and Mary, but then Mary and Esther are only 18 months apart. After Esther, she was done. Esther says that's because she'd tried 4 times to make the perfect child, and she'd finally accomplished it with her. I think it's because Esther was such a brat mom had enough after she was born. He shook his head as he walked toward the house, reflecting on all the nonsense that was his youngest sister. Misti laughed, climbing out of the truck. I'm amused at the way you and Esther pick back and forth. I would think you'd be more like that with Rebecca, since she's the next one in age. Nah. Rebecca's too sweet. She's always got a smile on her face, and she rarely lets me pick a fight with her. Besides, I'm her boss, and it would be even weirder than it already is if I had the kind of relationship with her that I have with Esther. After walking into the house, Misti left Micah in the living room, while she went into the downstairs bedroom she'd chosen for her mother. She wanted to make sure everything was just right for her mother's stay. She'd even put a piece of chocolate on the pillow. Maybe it was overkill, but she loved her mother, and she wanted to do something nice for her. It was their last night together until Misti married, and she was determined to make the best of it. When she'd convinced herself that she'd missed nothing about the room when she'd worked on it the previous evening, she left the door open and went into the kitchen, determined to make a wonderful meal for her mother and fiancé. This was their only chance to really get to know one another before the wedding, and though she knew her mother would be dead tired, the idea of them spending a meal together thrilled her to no end. She would make it a meal to remember if there was anything she could do to make it that way for them. Misti decided to make one of her mother's favorite meals, breakfast for dinner, or brinner as she liked to call it. She took a package of bacon out of the freezer and set it on the counter to get it thawed in time to cook it for their meal. She'd make French toast, scrambled eggs, and bacon. Walking into the living room, she checked her plans with Micah. Do you like brinner? Breakfast for dinner? I love it. Why? I figured that's what I'd cook tonight, because it's Mom's favorite. She loves that kind of thing. Misti shrugged. As long as Micah was good with it, she would make it happen for them. Micah smiled and nodded. Good plan. While they waited for her mother, Micah was surprised at how Misti paced, finding little things to clean as she did. She dusted one shelf 4 times. You're a nervous cleaner, aren't you? He asked, watching her wander around cleaning things that were already spotless. I am. I know it's silly, but I've always been this way. Misti remembered being a little girl and knowing her mother was upset, so she would clean her mother's room with the same precision she kept her own clean. My mom always says she wishes she was a nervous cleaner, because with 4 children, her house would always be spotless. Your parents' house is neat as a pin. They couldn't be talking about the same woman. Micah nodded. Thanks to Julie, the woman Mom pays to clean the house twice a week. Mom loves crafts and cooking, but she hates cleaning with a passion. Hence her wish she was a nervous cleaner. He shrugged. And she's always assigned the daily chores like dishes. Julie even does the laundry. That makes a lot of sense now. My mom is not particularly domestic. She does what she has to do to not live in filth, but she's either eating out of a can or eating takeout. She eats more takeout now that I'm grown and out of the house. Misti was glad her mother was now able to afford simple things like that, because Misti had always cooked for both of them. Misti heard the sound of a car and ran to the door. Her mother was sitting in the driveway, looking half asleep, but she'd made it in one piece. Mom. Misti hurried out and opened her mother's car door. I've missed you. And despite her mixed feelings over her relationship with her mother, she had missed her a great deal. Her mother stood and wrapped her arms around her. I missed you too, baby. Are you more tired or hungry? Misti asked. I was planning on Brenner, but I figured you'd need to sleep for a while first. Sleep. I definitely need sleep. Her mother looked out and saw Micah standing just outside the door. Come help with my bag, Micah. Misti grinned as she realized her mother had no problem bossing Micah around even though they hadn't even been introduced. Micah hurried over and grabbed the bag from the trunk her mother popped. Mom, this is Micah. Micah, this is my mom. It's nice to meet you, Miss, Micah trailed off. He had no idea if she used Miss, Ms., or Mrs., and he had no desire to get into trouble. Why were women's honorifics so horribly complex? Just call me Rhonda. All right, Rhonda. I'll take this to your room. Micah had noted the room Misti had been puttering around in earlier. He was just glad her mother had made things easier for him and he wasn't still struggling to figure out how to address her. He seems nice. Her mother stared after Micah as he disappeared into the house. Misti smiled. He really is a nice guy. I like him. Well, she more than liked him, but that wasn't a discussion she was ready to have with her mother at the moment. Glad to hear it since you're marrying him tomorrow. The wedding is still on, isn't it? It is. Misti linked arms with her mother and they walked toward the house. And this place is my band B. She was so proud of the house, she wasn't even sure how to formulate the words. I painted the outside of the house first, and I'm doing it room by room on the inside. I'm close to being ready to open. It's so strange that the person who left it to you said they were your godmother, because you never had a godmother. Well, someone left me this beautiful house, and I'm not going to give it back. Misti didn't let herself spend too much time worrying about the person who had left it to her, though it was a bit of a mystery. No, it was easier to just be happy that her dream was coming true and to not look a gift horse in the mouth. Her mother laughed. No, you couldn't do that. I'm going to want the full tour, but I need to sleep first. Chapter 8. Misti woke with a crick in her neck. Ow, she mumbled, rubbing her neck, only to find an arm there. She opened her eyes and looked at the man beside her, knowing at once it was Micah. How had he even begun to permeate her dreams so quickly? How long did you let me sleep? Only a couple of hours. Micah liked how confused she looked when she first woke up. Hours? She glanced at the clock on the wall beside her and groaned. A couple of hours? It's been more than 4. She jumped to her feet. Why did you let me sleep so long? She needed to get dinner started right away. She hated panicking. Because you were tired. Micah got up. I'll help you make supper. He wasn't a big help in the kitchen, but he could stir or something. But you can't cook. Misti was still a little panicked over him letting her sleep so long. She'd told her mother dinner would be in 5 hours, and that was over 4 hours ago. I can do something. Surely there's something a man who can't be trusted with a stove can do to help. She shook her head. Not too much. This is an easy meal, it's just a little time on my feet, because I want everything done at once. A little hard to coordinate. I really will help. Micah hated cooking, but he liked the idea of spending time with Misti in the kitchen. Could you stir eggs with a spatula and make sure they don't burn? She asked. It was the simplest task she could think of to have him do, and he would feel like he was contributing, which was obviously important to him. Probably. She didn't like the idea of him helping, but he seemed to be excited at the mere idea. She couldn't tell him no. All right. You can stir the eggs, but make sure they don't burn. She'd watch him as well as she could to make sure he followed instructions. His sisters had regaled her with tales of his terrible cooking over Sunday dinner. Micah grinned. If they burn, I'll owe you 1,000,000 kisses. Misti laughed. You know as well as I do that would be enough reason to burn the eggs. No, if you let them burn, you have to tell my mother it's all your fault her favorite meal was ruined. I guess I can agree to that. She whipped up the eggs and heated the pan, planning to put the eggs into it herself and get them started. It was an easy task, but from what his sisters had said, there was no trusting him in the kitchen. I do bacon in the microwave because it's less fatty that way. I can microwave like a champ. He looked so proud of himself when he said it that she couldn't help being charmed. She shook her head, laughing. So glad to hear you're good at nuking things. Everyone has to have a skill. Misti expertly made the meal, and just as she was removing the last piece of French toast from the pan, her mother emerged. I was just about to wake you. Mental alarm clock for the win, her mother said, yawning widely. That smells so good. I'm always amazed at what a wonderful cook you are when I know your mother doesn't have one iota of cooking skill in her entire body. You were always an expert at opening cans and making frozen fish sticks, Misti said with a smile. Yes, I was. Until you took over cooking at the age of 10. I felt like a failure, but it didn't bother me because your food was always so good. Well, I never thought you were a failure at all. Misti fixed 3 plates, handing one to Micah, and carrying the other 2 to the table. I know if you'd taken the time to learn to enjoy cooking, you'd have done it well, just like you do everything else. She opened the fridge and peered inside. Orange juice? Or milk? Orange juice, since I know you won't let me have coffee this late in the evening. Rhonda made a face at Misti. You can have decaf. I just want you to be able to sleep. Micah watched the 2 women, surprised at how it seemed like Misti was more mothering to her own mother than her mom was with her. It was odd. The dynamic wasn't at all what he'd expected. Misti said you're a nurse, he said, making it into a question. Hopefully, she'd talk to him about nursing, and he wouldn't have to say much. He liked to get people talking about themselves as he was getting to know them. I am. I've been working at a hospital in Burnsville for 10 years now. Oh, that's awesome. And you just happened to have this week off? He was surprised she hadn't had big plans for the week, but he was glad she was there for Misti's sake. Rhonda nodded. Yeah, my hospital does 7 days on and then 5 off. Misti happened to catch me on my first day off for the week, so I was able to drop everything and come see my baby get married. She smiled at her daughter. I'm really glad, Micah said. I don't think Misti would have been nearly as happy to do it without you. Though Misti hadn't said that, he was sure it was true. She had a close connection with her mother. She did everything else without me. Rhonda shook her head. I missed so many of her important things. I'm just glad she had Caroline and her parents to rely on. I really wish I'd done things differently, but I did the best I could at the time. You did do the best you could, Misti said, believing what she said with everything inside her. You didn't have anyone to help you, and I turned out just fine. You did, her mother smiled at her. I just wish I'd been there for more of your special things. Your ballet recitals, and your kindergarten graduation. I wonder if you'd have gone to college if I'd been there for you more. Mom, I did exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I apprenticed under some good men who taught me a lot. Being able to renovate this house, with little to no help at all, made me feel very powerful. Not every woman could have done it, but because of my work ethic, which very definitely came from my mother, I did. Her mother brushed a tear from her eye. You know you have every right to tell me I was a horrible mother. But you weren't. You weren't always as present as Mrs. Deaton was, but she didn't have to work. Misti shrugged. You were the mother I needed. Notice I didn't turn into a felon, and I never had to sleep on a street or go hungry. She'd worn hand-me-down clothes from Caroline often, but that had worked out because she'd always been small. It had never bothered her to wear clothes someone else had worn before her. Micah felt a little strange being a witness to the conversation, but he decided he couldn't let it bother him. It was good they felt free to open up with him listening. The family dynamic was very different than his own, but they seemed to welcome him the same way his family welcomed her. Are you having a reception? Rhonda asked, obviously done beating herself up for her parenting style or lack thereof. A small one. We're having finger foods and cupcakes. Misti smiled. The woman who made the cupcakes for Caroline's reception is making ours. I can still taste the cream cheese frosting. How did the two of you meet? At that question, Misti and Micah grew silent, not able to meet one another's eyes. He came over to talk about some business with the band B, and we just really hit it off. Misti gave the partial truth, because she could sense that Micah wasn't up to telling her mother even that much. That's lovely. And how long have you known each other? Misti fidgeted a little, but Micah answered that question. Since Thursday. Rhonda laughed. You're marrying a man you've known for 3 days? Where is my level-headed Misti? She fell for a man, and she can't seem to think straight, Misti said. She grinned at Micah, who smiled back at her. She had always been one to plot out every aspect of her life down to the latest detail. I think your daughter is pretty amazing. You did a good job with her. She mostly raised herself. Rhonda protested, but she looked at her daughter with pride. How are things at home? Misti asked. Are you seeing anyone? She worried about her mother spending the rest of her life alone. She couldn't remember her ever dating anyone, despite having been divorced for over 20 years. Never again. I told you that when you were 3, and I haven't dated since. Maybe you could try. I think you might be happier if you weren't always alone. I might be, Rhonda said, shrugging. But I might not. I'm pretty content right now. I have some friends I go out with when I'm off work, and I love my job. Working with the cardiac patients makes me feel like I'm doing something important. I'm glad you're happy, Misti said, deciding not to push it any further. Her mother had the right to find her own form of happiness, even if there was no man involved. She got up and cleared the table, loading the dishwasher quickly. Micah carried a few things for her. I'm going to head out and let you ladies have some time alone, he said softly. I'll see you at the church tomorrow afternoon. He leaned down and brushed his lips across Misti's, very aware of her mother's eyes on them. Maybe he couldn't have the kiss he wanted from her at that moment, but he was going to get at least a soft kiss. Good night, Misti said, smiling. The next time she saw him, they would be husband and wife. When the dishes were done, Misti asked her mother if she'd like to soak in the hot springs. I'm just too tired. I think I can sit and talk for a few minutes, but then I need to go back to sleep. I have to leave tomorrow anyway. I wish you could stay longer, Misti said automatically. She wasn't sure if it was true, but she didn't want to spend too much time dwelling on it either. It made her mother feel good for her to say it, and that was worth it. I wish I could too. But you don't want me here right after you marry. You'll want time alone with Micah, and I need to get back to making sure people don't die. Yup. You need to save all the people, Mom. It's my job. Her mother went to bed a short while later, leaving Misti sitting alone in her living room, a room that she'd personally renovated, on the eve of her wedding. For a moment, she thought about calling Caroline, but she knew her friend was with her own husband. No, she could be alone for a few more hours. Soon, she and Micah would be married, and her life would never be quite the same again. She walked through the house, shutting off all the lights and getting ready for bed. She planned to take a long hot bath in the morning, to shave her legs, and make one last effort to get the blue paint off her legs. Just as she was climbing into her bed, there was a text notification. Dreaming of you. I can't wait to call you my wife tomorrow afternoon. Misti couldn't help the smile of pure joy that crossed her face. There were so many reasons she was marrying the man, but the main one was that she was falling in love with him. She'd fallen in lust with him from the moment she laid eyes on him, but the love had followed quickly. I can't wait. The 3 words expressed everything she was feeling. All the impatience that filled her at the thought of marrying him in just a few short hours. She lay awake for a long while, staring up at the ceiling and imagining how the next day would be. She didn't care that she wasn't wearing a long white dress. The jeans she had chosen suited her better anyway. Micah would be there, along with the 2 women who mattered more to her than any others. Caroline and her mother. The wedding would be perfect, and she would always remember it fondly. As she drifted off to sleep, she had a smile on her lips. Micah was her future. She was certain of it. Chapter 9. Misti and her mother arrived at the church an hour early as promised, and Misti introduced the 2 mothers. Mom, this is Andrea Cunningham, Micah's mother. Andrea, this is Rhonda Marsh, my mom. Andrea immediately hugged Rhonda, and Misti wasn't surprised to see her mother look stunned. She wasn't really a hugger unless she knew the other person extremely well. She was pretty sure Andrea's warmth would win Misti over quickly, though. I'm so glad to meet you, Andrea said. We're thrilled to have Misti as a part of our family. Micah seems like a good man. You did a wonderful job raising him. As the mothers talked, Esther grabbed Misti's arm. We need to get you all dolled up so we can knock Micah's socks off. Esther pulled her future sister-in-law into a little room at the back of the church, where Misti had been not long before with Caroline as they both got ready for Caroline's wedding. Misti was pushed into a chair and the 3 Cunningham girls all walked in a circle around her. Your hair is so long and beautiful, Rebecca said. Is it okay if I take it out of the ponytail and make it fabulous? Misti nodded, feeling a little unsure. She wore her hair back every day because it kept it out of the way when she was working. Mary sat in a chair and watched the whole process, and Misti was unsure why at first, but then she saw Mary nodding at different things Esther and Rebecca were doing. She was supervising the whole thing. That shade is too bright for Misti. She needs a softer color lipstick. Esther didn't question her sister's words. Instead, she grabbed a soft shade of pink and opened it, holding the lipstick next to Misti's mouth. Better? Perfect. You'll want to use the sparkly gloss over it, Mary replied. It took the full hour, but when the girls were done, they stood Misti in front of a mirror, and she was shocked. I look like a girl. It had been a long time since she'd dressed up for anything. All 3 sisters laughed. That's kind of the point on your wedding day, don't you think? Mary asked. Probably. Is Micah even going to recognize me? You look just like you, Rebecca insisted. Just a little softer version of you. Misti nodded, sucking in a breath. Well, I guess we'll see what he thinks. She took the cowboy hat and started to cram it onto her head, but Rebecca took it from her and set it softly on top of the curls she'd made. There. Now you're perfect. Thank you. All of you. Mary was the one who answered. Anything for our new sister. Misti felt a tear trickling out of her eye at Mary's words, and Esther frowned. No crying. I'm so glad I thought to use waterproof mascara on you. The four of them stepped into the hall at the back of the church, where Caroline was talking to Rhonda and Andrea. Caroline took one look at Misti and grinned. You're beautiful. Thank you. Misti was nervous, but she was glad she wasn't wearing a big, fancy wedding dress. That would have made things so much harder for her. It's time, Andrea said. Let's all go get seated, girls. For a moment, Misti felt a qualm that she hadn't thought to include Micah's sisters in her wedding party, but then she realized that them getting her ready was just as good. Ted walked over to them, smiling at Caroline. I guess you're going to want me to escort you down the aisle? That would be lovely. Misti knew that Micah had asked Ted to be his best man, so it only made sense the married couple walked down the aisle together. Then her mother offered her arm to Misti, and Misti took it. It looked like you and Andrea really hit it off. We did, Rhonda told her. She's a lovely person. I think so too. Together, the two of them walked down the aisle toward Micah, accompanied by guitar music and a man Misti had never seen before. Micah stood with the pastor and Ted at the front of the church. Each step they took brought Misti closer to the future she wanted to last forever, even though she knew with her family's history, it wasn't really possible. When they reached the front of the church, her mother kissed her cheek and went to sit with Andrea. Micah took Misti's hand in his, and together they faced Pastor Dinkelheimler, ready to speak the words that would make them man and wife. After their kiss, there was applause from the assorted people in the church, and then Griselda was pushing them all toward the fellowship hall. That was when Misti realized the entire Cauldron clan had come out, and only a few of the people were licking their fingers when seeing them. Most of Micah's family didn't, which pleased Misti to no end. The man who had played the guitar, who Micah told her was Seth, was standing off to one side, talking to Jim Cauldron. He looked as if he felt a little out of place. It was all she knew about him, but when he was presented a cupcake with red frosting by Griselda, he took it and took a huge bite out of it, thanking the woman profusely for the special cupcake. Later, Misti remembered little else from the reception other than the taste of the wonderful frosting and hugging her mother goodbye as she headed back to Minnesota. I'm so glad you just dropped everything and came, Mom. It means the world to me. You mean the world to me, and though I may not have shown it like I should, it's true. Rhonda hugged her one last time before they split up in the parking lot, her mother to go to her own car, and Misti to Micah's truck. Where's your luggage? Micah asked after they were inside the truck and ready to head away from the church. Luggage? What do you mean? They hadn't discussed going anywhere for a honeymoon. You didn't pack for a honeymoon? He asked. I was planning on taking you away from all this. I rented a little cabin on a nature preserve not too far from here. Well, then you'd better take me to my house to pack a bag. She was excited to go somewhere, but she wished she'd known before. This was going to delay the wedding night, and she didn't want to delay it one bit. Micah shook his head. I can't believe you didn't realize I didn't want to honeymoon in your house. You could have communicated, she said, sticking her tongue out at him. He chuckled. Pack fast. She trailed her fingers over his arm. You could come in and help me pack. He shook his head. Oh, no. I'm not doing you until we get to the nature preserve. So, hurry. She sighed. You're a pain in my butt at times, Micah. Ditto. She packed in a hurry and jumped back into the truck, throwing her bag in the back. How far is this place? She asked. Only about 20 minutes out of town. I have food waiting there for us. And a few other surprises, but he didn't want to tell her about those, of course. When they got to the cabin, Misti jumped down, thinking absently that she needed to have Micah install a step on the passenger side of the truck if he wanted her to keep riding there. The entire place was beautiful, and she looked around her in awe. There were flowers in bloom, and it was obvious animals made good use of the land there. Micah grabbed her bag from the back, and took her hand, pulling her toward the door of the cabin. When they reached the door, he scooped her up in his arms, opened the door, and set her on her feet just inside the living room. You know, for someone who does the kind of work you do, you're kind of a lightweight. Misti wrinkled her nose at him. Do you want me to be some kind of huge Amazonian woman with arms the size of a bodybuilder's? Nah. I think you're perfect just how you are. He led her to the one bedroom in the little cabin, and she saw that he'd spelled out her name in rose petals on the bed. I guess we can't sleep there, because it'll mess up all your hard work, she said, grinning at him. I think I can handle us messing up my work. He reached for her, stroking his hands down her back. I don't suppose you're up for a little bit of married people kind of fun? She laughed. Is that how you're asking me if I'm ready for you to do me? Actually, it kind of is. She stepped toward him and wrapped her arms around him. Words were no longer needed as far as she was concerned. The man made her blood boil, and she was happy to show him just how he made her feel. It wasn't long before he had them both naked, and she was lying on her back on the bed, looking up at him. He was even sexier with no clothes on. Her eyes went to the muscles on his arms. Do you lift? He shook his head. Not much. I do a little, because I want to stay in shape. I kind of like your shape, she said with a smile. I'm glad, 'cause I know I like yours. He lowered himself onto the bed beside her, one hand going to toy with her breast. He wanted to take all the time in the world this first time with his pretty little bride. You look beautiful today. Shocking, huh? I still didn't get all the paint off my legs. He laughed. Trust me, I'm not worried about a little paint. Misti ran her hands over his back and then onto his biceps. They were so strong. He must lift a lot more than he admitted to, or he wouldn't have the kind of arms he did. Make love to me, Micah. All of Micah's good intentions flew out the window as he stroked her body, trying to make her want him just as much as he wanted her. When he covered her body with his, he wasn't surprised at the small gasp of pain, but he was surprised when she wouldn't let him slow down. No, his beautiful girl was a strong, capable woman, and he had no doubt that she would handle anything he threw at her. He kept going until she called out his name, and then he found his own pleasure, lowering his head to kiss her as he finished. You're the most amazing woman I've ever known, he said softly. She sighed. Keep telling me that, would you? They stayed in bed for a while, and finally Misti said, I'm starving. Please tell me you thought to bring food to this little love shack. He laughed. I think I stocked up pretty well. I plan on staying until Sunday, so I had Mom make me a list, and she said you could make most anything from what I brought. Maybe you should cook too, she suggested. He kissed her again. Only if we want to die. I'm sure I'd poison us, without meaning to. Well, I would hope you wouldn't try to poison your wife. She scampered to the side of the bed and picked up his shirt off the floor, slipping it on and buttoning it up. He watched her move toward the door, a smile on his face. He'd chosen his bride well. Chapter 10. It only took them a couple of days to get back into their regular routine once the honeymoon was over. Micah went back to working at the hotel every day, though he'd come home for lunch when he could. Misti went back to refinishing furniture for the last 2 bedrooms. She was excited with how close she was to being ready to open. On the Wednesday after they returned home, Misti was out on the back porch working on sanding down an old headboard, when she heard a car pull up into the driveway. She walked over to see who it was, and she was surprised to see a city logo on the side of the white vehicle. She put her hand over her eyes to shade them from the sun and called out, "Can I help you?" The man who was driving got out from behind the steering wheel and took her an official-looking envelope. "I've been asked to deliver this." Misti flipped it over in her hands. "What is it?" "It's a cease and desist in regards to your advertising. There's been a complaint that you're talking about hot springs that don't exist here in town." The man didn't meet her eyes as he said the last part, and she knew why. No one wanted to admit the hot springs existed. "May I ask who filed the complaint?" Misti asked. She was a little upset that whoever it was hadn't just come straight to her, but she knew sometimes things like that happened. "Yes, ma'am. It was Micah Cunningham. He owns the Cauldron Inn." The man turned to leave. "If you have any questions, you're welcome to go to City Hall and discuss them." Misti felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. Micah had complained about her to City Hall? Micah? Her husband? What the actual heck? She went to the back porch and stared at the headboard, convinced that she didn't want to continue working just then. Micah was due home in an hour, and she would have to confront him with all this. Why would he sabotage her business? It just made no sense. She left the headboard behind and went into the kitchen. Pulling out the stove and sweeping behind it took up some of her nervous and angry energy. Supper was already in the crock pot, so she couldn't cook her anger away. When she finished in the kitchen, she moved all the furniture in the living room, vacuuming out from under everything. She was working on moving the couch back when Micah walked in. Princess had long before gone to lie on their bed for a nap, sensing that Misti was spitting mad. "Let me help with that," Micah said, walking over to grab the other end of the couch. "I don't want your help," Misti spat. "Are you upset with me about something?" he asked, looking genuinely confused. She walked into the kitchen and picked up the cease and desist notice, swatting him with it when she realized he was following her. She wanted to do so much more than that, but it just didn't seem right for her to start beating her husband after only a week and a half of marriage. "What's this?" he asked. "You tell me." Misti crossed her arms over her chest and waited as he opened the letter and read it, his eyes widening. "I can explain." Micah's voice was almost panicked, and she was glad. He needed to worry about their relationship after his ridiculous behavior. "Is that so?" "I'm waiting." Misti couldn't imagine anything he could possibly say that would excuse what he'd done. "I did this the day we met. I had no idea I was going to marry you." Micah rubbed his hand over the back of his neck, upset that he hadn't thought to go back and pull his complaint. Though he did still think his complaint was valid. "Did you do it before you came to my house or after?" she asked, glaring at him. "What does it matter?" He tried to take her hand, but she swatted his away. "It matters because we kissed that day, and we had our first date that evening." "Did you go before we kissed or after?" "I'm not sure I remember." "Yes, you do." "Before or after?" she asked again, refusing to accept a non-answer from him. "After. But I had no idea things would escalate between us so quickly." "And you think that excuses this?" Misti wanted to kick him, but instead she walked to the couch and she moved it back where it had been. "Why are you trying to ruin my business? You don't want me to work? Is that it?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. "That's not it at all. I really don't want a bunch of tourists coming in and changing our little town. I don't think it would be good for the community. But it would be good for business." Misti couldn't believe the man. "If I'd remembered the complaint, I would have withdrawn it, but I was so wrapped up in my relationship with you that I didn't even remember going in until you handed me the letter." "Sure, you didn't." She really wanted to do something violent, so she sat down on the couch, far from him. "I guess this is why my mother says that having a man in your life isn't worth the hassle." Micah walked over and sat beside her, reaching a hand out to stroke her arm. When she pulled away from him, he didn't try to touch her again. What can I say to make this better? That you're an idiot. That would be a nice start. He shook his head. Look, my family has known about the hot springs for generations. Believe it or not, the hotel has a hot spring that we've covered with wood and planted flowers on. We don't want anyone changing our town. We love it like it is. So, you're willing to sabotage my business to keep the town the same? It made no sense. I told you, I did that before I knew that we were going to have a relationship. If I could do it over again, I never would have gone to City Hall, but I still would have tried to convince you that we don't want to advertise the springs. He shook his head. I love you, but I love this town too, and I don't want things changing around here. Misti glared at him. I've been waiting for what seems like an eternity for you to tell me you love me, and you choose to do it now when I'm so pissed off at you, I can't see straight? I guess I have terrible timing, huh? Micah closed his eyes. I knew I loved you when I asked you to marry me. I realized it in the restaurant the day after we met. That first day, I was just attracted to you, but the more I knew about you, the more I realized I love you. I swear, I would never have done that if I'd realized. She sighed. I love you too, but right now, I just want to throw rocks at your head. I don't know if I should laugh at that statement or run away screaming. I'm really sorry I messed up so badly. And I'll withdraw my complaint tomorrow. Whichever way you decide to go with the advertising, I won't complain. Misti didn't want to upset the whole town, or her husband, but it didn't make sense to her not to use the God-given miracle right there in her yard. What if I don't advertise them, but once people get here, I offer them a soak? Micah nodded. I think that's probably the best solution. Then that's what I'll do. I'll order new advertising, and I think I know what I want to change the name of the house to. You decided against Cauldron Valley Band B? Yeah. I want to make it Madam's Band B. I have one room I hadn't decided on a song for, and that room will be all Madam decorations. What do you think? As long as I'm the big M and you're the little M. Oh, please. Misti shook her head. You're a mess and a half, Micah Cunningham. I know. But I'm your mess and a half. For now. What does that mean? He asked. Are you thinking of leaving me? Of course not. But women in my family don't stay married. Men always leave us. I won't. Ever. Misti nodded. All right. Not that she would ever believe that. She knew better. You don't believe me? Micah was surprised. Maybe if we make it through the first 5 years, I'll feel better. For now, know that I love you. And I love you. Asterisk. 8 years later, Micah stood with his arms wrapped around Misti's waist. Are you sad to be closing the business? He asked. In front of them their children were playing on a jungle gym she'd built for them in the backyard. All 4 of them. I'm not. I've loved what I've done with this house, but with the twins coming, well, I just think it makes more sense to turn it into a single-family home. There will never be enough bedrooms otherwise. He laughed. You are so right about that. And I can keep doing the furniture refinishing that I enjoy so much. I had no idea I'd have such a knack for antique furniture. I didn't either, but I'm glad you do. The previous year, she'd built herself a workshop in the backyard, and whenever there weren't any guests and the kids weren't too needy, she'd head out there and work. Now, she would get to do something she was skilled at as often as the kids allowed it. Still believe I won't stick around? She laughed softly. Well, after 8 years of marriage and 6 kids, I'm pretty sure you're sticking. I'm glad. He kissed the top of her head. You and the kids are my everything. She turned in his arms and hugged him. And you're all mine. Epilogue. I see you got the red cupcake. Seth's attention jerked up from the special treat to see his boss, Jim Cauldron, grinning at him. Yeah? Seth glanced down at the remains of the cupcake in his hands. Is there something I should know about it? But Jim just shrugged and shoved his hands in the pockets of his jeans. Nope, not a thing, he said with a smile. That was a nice wedding, don't you think? We've known Micah and his family for years. They've been in Cauldron Valley almost as long as we have. Seth peered at the man whom he respected as a hoarse whisperer, but who was acting mighty strange right now. Yeah, it was nice. And it had been, with the cowboy theme. If Seth ever found a lady he wanted to marry, he wanted to go a little more traditional. But it was hard to deny a Western-themed wedding needed some guitar music, and that was basically his favorite thing, ever. Hi, guys. Jim's wife, Joy, bounced over. What did I miss? Jim's grin grew. It was obvious how in love with his wife he really was, as he snaked his arm around her middle. Oh, nothing, sweetheart. I was just chatting with Seth here about the wedding. Oh, wasn't it lovely? Joy giggled. And since the bride was wearing jeans, we couldn't see her paint-covered legs. Remember what she looked like in those shorts at Ted's wedding? Seth hadn't been there, so while Jim chuckled at the memory, Seth focused on polishing off the last of the cupcake Griselda had brought him. Seth, the music was really amazing, Joy said, grabbing his attention again. That was really nice of you to agree to play. Automatically, Seth swung his acoustic guitar, which had been hanging down his back, around. When the neck settled against the palm of his right hand, everything felt right in the world. No problem, he said softly, as his left hand covered the strings. I was really pleased to be asked, honest. And he was being honest. He so rarely got to perform music as himself. Even if he was just playing covers of other singers' songs, it was nice to have the chance to play. Yeah, he didn't love the live shows he sometimes had to do, but there was a difference between playing as himself in front of his friends, and playing as. Well, it didn't matter, not here and now. Pastor Dinkelheimler sure has his hands full these days, huh? Jim smiled at his wife. He's getting good at these last-minute weddings. Joy chuckled. Wyatt was the only one who didn't have a church wedding. He probably didn't want to deal with all the finger-licking. What about you, Seth? His boss's question surprised Seth enough that his fingers plucked out a harsh chord as he jerked. What? What about me? When you get married, do you think you'd go with a church? Whoa, whoa. Seth chuckled, shaking his head. I'm sorry to disappoint you, boss man, but I'm not getting married anytime soon. Oh, he wanted to get married, sure. But there was no way he would do it anytime soon. Being married meant you trusted the other person. And he wasn't in a position to trust anyone. You seem awfully certain of that, Seth. Joy cocked her head and studied him. Isn't there a lady you could see yourself married to? Seth smiled gently, his fingers instinctively picking out a soft tune to calm himself. Not yet, ma'am. I'm not ruling it out, but it'd take someone pretty special. It would take someone pretty special to make him spill all his secrets. Chuckling, Jim slid his arm up and around Joy's shoulders. I can understand that. Me too, Joy agreed. And I look forward to meeting this special lady friend of yours. She winked. Someday. But now, I'm going to have to drag my husband away to the dance floor. Nothing against your playing, but sometimes a girl just needs to rock out to some Elvis. Sighing dramatically, Jim allowed himself to be pulled off. Work, work, work. Seth chuckled as he watched the pair go. They weren't the only ones dancing, and it was nice to see so many people enjoying themselves. There was an energy generated by people when they were really feeling the music, and it was the one thing he really liked about playing live shows. With a sigh, he turned his back on the party. Without a date, it wasn't like he could dance. And now that the ceremony was over, he figured his job was done. Better pack up his guitar and head back home. There was a tune running through his head that he needed to get down on paper. It might be a lonely life, but it was worth it, to keep his secrets safe.